Hey guys, Sebastian here from Walkways Vintage. Welcome to our gallery. In today's video, we'll be talking about Gibson Les Pauls, particularly the current reissues that the custom shop offers and the years that they relate to, and obviously the history of this guitar model and how it evolved throughout the years. We'll be talking about 5 different guitars. We have the year 1956, 57, 58, 59, and 1960. There's other models outside of that range, so in order not to make the video too long, we'll be focusing only in these 5. The amp that we'll be using for the demo will be this Marshall SV20 from the Studio series. This is, by all intents and purposes, a plexi brought down in size, and it sounds fantastic, and it's just the perfect companion for these guitars. So let's go ahead and dive in with the first year. In 1952, Gibson released on the market the Les Paul model, which featured a solid body design with a mahogany body, maple top, mahogany neck, and rosewood fretboard. And those guitars at first presented certain quirks that weren't immediately loved by players. Therefore, Gibson, as the years went on, refined the formula until they reached sort of like their sweet spot. And fast forward to the year 1956, we start to see some of those upgrades come to fruition. The first thing that we can see here is the two-pneumatic bridge, which allowed you to fine-tune the intonation of each individual string. The bridge that Gibson had featured before was first a trapeze design, followed by the wraparound, that didn't allow you to change intonation, it didn't allow you to really palm mute the guitar, and this was the first design that allowed you to do both of those things, so it was much more favored by players. Some of the things that they kept were the soap bar P90 pickups, as well as the gold top color. So this 1956 reissue from the custom shop features the best specs from a 1956 Les Paul. The way Gibson is building guitars now, they basically grab an original model, they scanned it with a laser scan, and they replicate the specs that they're able to find in those guitars in the reissues. And the specs that we find here that are basically mostly related to that year, 1956, would be the neck, for example, which tends to be on the fatter side. This is something that varied quite a bit back then. Gibson pretty much made all the guitars by hand, and obviously certain guitars varied from builder to builder. Some of them made the necks skinnier, some others made them fatter. It tends to be the case that the average instrument from this era had a bigger neck, but it is possible that you might find some of them that had some on the thinner side as well. So Gibson is basically basing this on what players mostly desire from these sort of years and what is mostly commonly found. What makes this guitar so special, I would say, is the fact that it has P90 pickups. Usually the Les Paul is associated with humbuckers, so this is a good way of finding a guitar that again has those classic Les Paul specs that we all love, but with these style of pickups. Also, the gold top just gives it a very unique look that is definitely reminiscent of those earlier Les Paul years. And if you also like bigger necks, then this is definitely the right guitar for you. Let's go ahead and play for a bit so you guys can hear it. Now let's move on to the year 1957. What we find here is a guitar that has some subtle changes that totally transform the instrument into a whole different beast. Let's start out by talking about the small details, such as the logo in the headstock. As you can see, it now has been moved up. The most significant change that we see here is introduction of humbucker pickups. This design was introduced by Seth Lover to basically create a pickup that did not have any noise or the 60 cycle hum that would normally come out of a single coil pickup design, as you will often find in P90s or other single coils made by Fender. And it went on to redefine the voice of this instrument. What we have here is a 57 reissue, and it has again a lot of the same characteristics as the previous models: mahogany body, maple top. It keeps the gold top, as you can see right here. And what I like about these guitars mostly is that they tend to usually be priced a little bit lower than some of the other reissues, such as the 59 and the 1960. I believe that that is because you don't need a crazy flame top if you're gonna paint gold over it. Therefore, you can save a little bit on that. And these have always been solid instruments. If you like big necks and humbucker pickups, the 57 is definitely gonna deliver. Moving on to the year 1958, this is one of the most important years for the Gibson Les Paul because we see the introduction of the sunburst finish. This was part of a marketing campaign to basically spice up the sales for the Les Paul models that weren't doing too well in 57. And as part of that came a change in the name, which is now named the Les Paul Standard as opposed to the Gibson Les Paul model that was previously used. And the sunburst finish is what really gives, I think, the Les Paul part of its characteristic look. Originally, these came out of the factory with a cherry finish that was very vibrant and bright, and the dye that Gibson used at the time was sensitive to UV light. And because of that and the result of poor sales, a lot of these ended up in front of guitar stores where the sunlight would hit it every single day, and some of them faded almost completely. And there's so many different combinations of different fades that ended up looking totally different from what they originally came out of the factory as, that you see them in all different sorts of colors out in the wild. And Gibson, what has done is that they have basically grabbed some of the most iconic ones and made them into staple colors that you can get into some of these guitars. So for example, this 58 is an iced tea finish. If you were to compare it against an original one that came right out of the factory with the red finish, you would see that this one is quite faded. What I like about the 58 is that, as you can see, you don't have a flame top here. And just like the 57, it is priced slightly lower than the 59 and the 1960. Gibson tends to use sort of like their top quality woods for those two models. And for these, you still get premium woods, but not as nice, or maybe slightly heavier, which again just brings down the price quite a bit. And this obviously can vary from guitar to guitar. Not all of them are heavy, not all of them are light. And I've seen some that have a really nice flame to it. For the most part, you tend to find a plain top on 58s. I love these guitars. They have a special place in my heart. I've played one for many years, and they're just killer instruments. If you want to get a solid Les Paul with the quality of a custom shop made instrument with humbuckers and a sunburst finish, you really can't go wrong with a 58. right, so we have arrived to the year 1959, and this is considered by many the perfect Les Paul. These guitars, especially original ones, ended up in the hands of some of the greatest players in the world. Jimmy Page, Slash, Eric Clapton. What makes this guitar so special is the combination of specs, especially when it comes to the neck, which on 59, a lot of the original instruments that you find have a profile that is not too fat, not too skinny. It just has the right size. It fits perfectly. The fret wire also got a little bit bigger, which improved quite a bit the playability of the guitar. And yeah, by many, this is considered to be the pinnacle of electric guitar. 59 Les Pauls are basically just as good as it gets when you come to Les Paul. And if you look again at original models, they need to fetch incredible prices because of how desirable and popular they are. This reissue that we got right here, it's a Murphy lap model. This is basically being aged to resemble even closer an original guitar from 1959. They offer different levels of aging. You can go from sort of like a light age to like a heavy look where the guitar looks very distressed, and it looks fantastic with all the checking. They also come with different finishes that are not available on the standard 59 reissues. And yeah, these are just basically the pinnacle of electric guitar building when it comes to Gibson guitars. You find very fine woods here, like we mentioned earlier. You get the lightest pieces of mahogany. You find the nicest tops, and usually these tend to be sort of like at the top end when it comes to the Gibson Custom Shop catalog. I love this guitar, it's amazing. Alright, so we have made it to the year 1960. What we got right here, it's a 1960 reissue Les Paul, and this is what's considered the last year of the burst. After 1960, Gibson continued to name some guitars Les Paul, but that model was later rebranded as the SG, so those are for a whole different video. But what we got here, again, is just a replica or a reproduction of the guitars that came in that year, and few changes happened from 59 to 1960, but important changes nonetheless. One of the most important things is that the neck got slimmer. This was a response from Gibson to the players that were asking for faster necks. So they kept the big fret wire, but slimmed down the necks a bit. And then the other thing that they changed is that the dye that they used for the red color that previously faded in all their models, now it was different, so it did not fade, but however, it bled into the sunburst finish, giving birth to the famous tomato soup burst that are these Les Pauls that have a very intense red color that again just sort of like takes over the whole guitar. Some players love it, some others don't. I find it very unique to that particular year. And then finally you have here the reflector knobs. That is something that appeared halfway through 1960. One thing that happened with a lot of these guitars is that a lot of these specs didn't just change at the beginning or at the end of every year. They actually bled into some of the other years. So it's very common to find early 1960 Les Pauls that basically have 1959 specs. But this is basically how they would have looked towards the end of the year 1960 as the Les Pauls ceased to exist. So yeah, this is an amazing guitar. I love it. It has, just like the 59 that we showed earlier, a really nice flame top with a light mahogany body. It just feels fantastic, and it's just such a killer Les Paul. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys want to find out more about these guitars, the links will be down below in the description. Head over to our website, waltgracevintage.com, so you can see all the amazing things that we carry, from vintage guitars to cars, coffee, watches, motorcycles, and many more cool things. If you guys want to support the channel, give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and follow us on Instagram at @WaltGraceVintage for more content like this. My name is Sebastian. Until next time.